honor joining us now, the best investigative reporter on all these stories, the #1 best investigative reporter. We have Miranda Devine, New York Post columnist, Fox News contributor, and author of Laptop from Hell. Miranda, great pleasure to have you back on the show. So let's get this one right. Hunter Biden's best friend is going to be testifying pretty soon before the Oversight Committee, and he is going to spill the beans on all these phone calls that were taking place where Joe Biden made himself available at a moment's notice. Please tell us more, Miranda Devine.
Thanks, Larry. Yes, we've just breaking news that Devon Archer, who was Hunter Biden's former best friend in business, they've now nailed down a date for him to testify before the Oversight Committee. It's been a bit of a movable feast. It was supposed to be today, then it was going to be Thursday. Now they've finally agreed with Devon Archer's lawyer that it will be Monday, July 31st, when he will come in for a transcribed interview behind closed doors with the Oversight Committee. And Devon Archer, remember, was convicted over that $60 million bond fraud with Burnham, that company that he and Hunter Biden were involved with. The Southern District of New York decided that Devon Archer was involved, but Hunter wasn't. So Devon Archer is off to jail very shortly. So he's getting in this testimony before he does, because basically he has nothing to lose. He's agreed to cooperate because he wants the truth to be out there. And the truth, as he will tell it, I believe, is that he's going to talk about all these meetings that he witnessed that Hunter Biden organised for his father, then the Vice President, Joe Biden, to meet with his overseas business partners. And there's up to a dozen of these speakerphone calls where Hunter Biden would be meeting with these overseas benefactors or trying to close a deal or trying to demonstrate his worth. And he would just pull out his phone, dial his father, slap it on the table, put him on speakerphone, and introduce his father to the people around the table. And in one specific,
No, I was just going to add.
One specific.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say that I talk about one specific call in December of 2015 after a Burisma board meeting. That's the corrupt energy company that was paying Hunter $83,000 a month to sit on the board. They had a board meeting in Dubai, and afterwards Hunter and Devon Archer went off to another bar to have a drink, and they were contacted urgently by the Burisma owner and his right-hand man. Where are you? We need to talk to your dad. They came along, and Hunter put his dad on speakerphone again. And that was right before Joe Biden went to Ukraine and demanded that the prosecutor who was investigating Burisma be fired. And lo and behold, a couple of months later, he was.
Yeah, that's the one. I'm glad. I was just going to ask you to highlight the Dubai call. I mean, I guess they went to a local bar and just dialed up. Now, Joe Biden, let's be clear. Joe Biden was vice president at the time, point number one.
Yep.
And point number two, Miranda, as you have reported so much, Joe Biden keeps saying, all right, first, I didn't know anything about my son's business. Then it kind of changed a little bit. I was never involved in my son's business. When I hear these phone calls, I mean, there may have been dozens of phone calls. The head of Burisma has text messages as well as phone calls because Joe Biden apparently coerced him into a $5 million payment. I mean, Joe Biden was up to his eyeballs in this. In fact, you could almost argue, and that's my question, was Joe Biden the guy who really was running all this family, some people call it the family crime syndicate operations? Hunter was his vehicle, but Joe was the chairman of the board.
Well, Joe was called the chairman at times by Hunter Biden's former business partners, also called the big guy. Sure, I mean, this was Joe Biden's influence peddling operation, which he'd been running since his earliest days as a 30-year-old senator in this very peculiar small state of Delaware, where he basically controls everything and everybody, and where a lot of corporations have their headquarters for just peculiar reasons. And therefore there's a lot of money sloshing around for politicians who wield an enormous amount of power, and that would be Joe Biden. And remember, it's pretty clear what Burisma was paying Hunter Biden for when you look at the fact that a couple of months after Joe Biden was out of office, ceased being vice president, Hunter Biden's $83,000 a month stipend from Burisma was cut in half.
Yes, right. It's just terrible. Father, no, I get that. If this guy, whatever his name is, Devin, whatever his name is, if he testifies, okay, this is firsthand information. This isn't hearsay. This isn't second and third hand. I mean, what does that do to the case? That's going to break the case wide open. I mean, we heard last week from the FBI reports that were let out by Chuck Grassley that Joe Biden was the guy coercing Burisma, not the other way around. $5 million for him and his son. But now, if this Devin guy comes in, what does that do? It breaks open everything. It'll be an incredible blockbuster. What are they going to say about that?
Well, yes, Devin Archer, it will not just be testifying about those up to 24 speakerphone calls. He also was present at 2 dinners at Cafe Milano, which is an Italian restaurant in Georgetown,
my favorite,
in a private room, where Hunter Biden invited his father along to meet his overseas business partners. Now, I've written extensively about one of those in April of 2015, which is catalogued pretty heavily on the laptop. And at that dinner that Joe Biden attended, Hunter Biden had invited one of these Burisma guys, the one who speaks English, Vadim Pozarski, and as well as Elena Baturina, who is an oligarch in Russia, Russia's richest woman, and her husband, who was the former Moscow mayor. So she was the former First Lady of Moscow, as well as some Kazakhstanis, former Kazakhstani Prime Minister, and so on. All these people paid millions of dollars, or hundreds of thousands of dollars when it came to the Kazakhstanis, to Hunter Biden and other Biden family members. And we know that Joe Biden said before the election in 2020 that he knew nothing about his son Hunter's overseas business dealings. The very first story that we published from the laptop on October 14, 2020, was about that meeting, that dinner I just told you about. We didn't know it was a dinner at that point, at Cafe Milano between the Burisma executive paying Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, and Joe Biden's campaign denied it. And that was run as truth. Joe Biden went to ground and wouldn't answer our questions. And then, of course, he got the former CIA directors to come out with that bogus letter saying it was all Russian disinformation. Well, now we know it wasn't. Yeah. And Devin Archer will prove that.
Well, Devin Archer will prove that. But Devin Archer is going to open up a lot of other things when he testifies. If he does what you say he's going to do, he may as well. I don't know whether they're going to grant him. He's up for a prison sentence. We'll see what happens. But this is going to be blockbuster stuff. Anyway, Miranda Devine, phenomenal work, as always. By the way, Miranda, Cafe Milano is a very good restaurant. I just want to say that. The only good part of this whole story is I was going to say good press for Cafe Milano. I don't know if it's good press. If it spells the name right, it's good press, but it's a very good Italian place. Anyway, Miranda Devine of the New York Post.
It is good.
Fox News contributor. And I've eaten in that room, the glassed-off room, many times. All right.
Oh, have you?
We will talk. Hopefully
I've only gone for research.
Oh, no.
Research purposes.
I'll buy you dinner there sometime. I know the owner. Anyway.
Excellent.
Miranda, we'll talk to you next week after these hearings. Thank you ever so much.